we will talk about the role of AI and the new generation of software in both effectiveness and efficiency where appropriate. We have three incredible minds representing very unique perspectives in the industry. Claire Gribban representing the worldwide AWS SMB market, like 50 billion plus business. Keith Strier, Senior Vice President of Global AIs. He deals with minor junior league people like presidents of countries and help them with AI. And then one of the most on-demand industry analysts for AI, Arun Bachu. And Claire and Arun, thank you for flying in for this event. And Keith, I know you're local. So before we start, I asked AI to give me an icebreaker for this session, putting AI to work. And the question was, by the way, how many of you have heard of AI agents? Wow, how many have not? Now don't raise your hand. So why did the AI agent get promoted? It never takes a break, never asks for a raise, and always responds with, how can I assist? So how is that? So
the AI wrote that, right? It's not
AI
funny.
wrote that. Very self-serving. So with that introduction, if you don't mind, I ask each one of you to start with some statement about your perspective about the next practices. You all represented different perspectives, and I will share. I'm also a panelist, so I'll also participate. And by the way, for those of you who don't know me, Fatehi, CEO of Corent Technology. You see our name and AWS on the screens here. So Claire, if you don't mind, just share with us, how do you see what's around the corner? What are the next practices? And then I ask the same, Keith and Arun, and I would add to it, and then we go and continue the conversation.
In the SMB world, most small businesses really don't have the IT skills to even work directly with Amazon Web Services. Many of you might not even be familiar with AWS. That's why I like to call it out as it's Amazon Web Services. And we've been the leaders in cloud infrastructure for many, many years. We're still the market leader. We still have the largest share. But where I see us going is there's this market of unserved, underserved small businesses out there that are the engines of global economies. I worked in emerging economies for many years. I worked in Turkey. I hope to win that ticket, actually. I worked in Africa, across Africa. So I don't think we've done a good job of serving them because they don't know how to come to us. So I've started to conceive of our move needs to be to an agentic infrastructure using intelligent building blocks. I had originally said Lego blocks, but legal told me I'm not allowed to use Lego. So, but I think people understand that metaphor of a building block, right? And we need to start to see intelligence as a building material in and of itself. And I think of a building block as things that snap together. And in the IT world, I'm empowering tens of thousands of our partners who understand how to build, but they don't necessarily understand how to build with AI, agentic AI, even with cloud services. So we're giving them these intelligent building blocks to snap together into solutions for small businesses so that small businesses can have the best of enterprise-grade outcomes, but at a price that works for them. And it's even still bespoke, but it's not bespoke in the sense of, like now I'm gonna be the IT person, but like we have like these systems integrators that have big statement of work, and they go in and they do everything, every little thing, right? And an SMB can't afford to do that. We need to empower the smaller partners who work with these small businesses to be able to create that same level of solution, but by snapping these intelligent building blocks together into what I call composable solutions. So that's really what's coming next. We have something called Hero that was just released. That's a really great tool that will enable, for the first time, a business need to be married to an IT person who can actually develop it at that partner. So what I mean is you can go out there today and any of you can turn around an app. I could actually show it to you in 5 minutes. If I can, I'm going to come back later today and I will show you how to build your own app with Party Rock, which is an Amazon tool. However, that is not going to be an enterprise grade app. And even in a small business, you still need it to be secure, you need it to be governed, you need it to have identity. And with Kiro, what you're able to do is, as a business person, build this kind of app as a prototype, but then immediately connect it into real governance guardrails. Yeah, I'll be concise. Done.
Excellent. Great person. But am I allowed to say Lego blocks or legal? Okay, I can. Okay, well, thank you. I like that. Keith.
Hey, Fazy. So Fazy noted that I'm the only one that lives here, and this is important because I'm local. This matters because I'm not flying off on a plane when we're done, so I have to be careful. If I say something, I might run into you at the Whole Foods or some future UCI event, you know, like, oh, there's that guy, he was on stage, he made all this nonsense, whatever. You get to fly off, and, you know, but I'm here, so understand that I take this conversation very seriously because I feel like I'll likely have to be accountable for it. The other thing is, I did have the privilege of spending 5 years inside NVIDIA on the core leadership team, taking that company from 100 billion to 3 trillion, and which is the fastest rise of any company in the history of companies, and you know, and had a perch in that role over all the world's governments and the biggest deals in the world to really see what was happening behind the scenes. Now, I don't want to talk to you about chips because really chips are boring. I mean, you know, I mean, we can nerd out on the side if you want. Really, let's not talk about GPUs. But in terms of next practices for you guys, you know, what I would tell you is, and this is kind of stealing my own thunder in terms of a quote, it's underhyped. You have to take this super seriously. I have this conversation with prime ministers, with crown princes, with people all across the economic spectrum, and I have one single message, which is you must take this very, very seriously. And it doesn't matter what your resources are. It doesn't matter if you're 5 people running a pizza shop or you're Mukesh Ambani, you know, running the largest company in India. It doesn't matter. There isn't a part of the economy, there isn't a part of society that will not be deeply impacted, not all at the same time. There are industries that are really lagging, you know, and it could be 10 years before they look deeply impacted, and there are others like coding and software engineering and transportation that are being disrupted aggressively right now. So everything, it's very variable, but have no doubt that artificial intelligence is not like, it's not another technology. It is the single most important innovation in your lifetime. It is generally thought of as the 27th general purpose technology since the dawn of civilization. There's only been 27 that have met this, you know, going all the way back to the domestication of plants and the steam engine. You know, you can look this up, you know, AI is 27. And the reason why that's important is because all the other technologies that ever existed have been, as Steve Jobs put it, a bicycle for the mind, right? This is not a bicycle for the mind. This is a digital version of the mind, right? This creates a synthetic form of intelligence. I know you like to use that. But you know, it is, and that is fundamentally different. So and again, small. But there's one other really important takeaway. So what's so interesting about this new era that we're in, this modern era of AI, and it is the modern era because there were kind of a few other waves before the recent one. For what it's worth, the modern era of AI started around 2012. So we're about 12 years into this cycle. What's so interesting about it is because even though you read headlines of big companies doing big things, actually maybe the most powerful narrative here will be small businesses, small countries, small teams doing amazing things. And so we have now entered, because AI allows you to scale human capabilities, like the ability to cognate and well, I know, again, we argue about it.
It's okay.
All right, it's the ability, I like to say it's the simulating human-like cognition, but because you can have essentially 1 billion brains in your back pocket, the only gating factor being electricity. So I don't want to pay your electricity bill if you have 1 billion brains. But the truth is you can do that. We have now entered the era of the 1-person $1 billion company and the 10-person $10 billion company. This is not fantasy, right? So maybe you've heard a company called Cursor, okay, which is one of the hot little companies that's at the bleeding edge of coding AI. They have 20 people and their value is 9.9 billion. Okay? You no longer need an army. You don't need to fill a building like this to be worth anything. It's just not the case. In this new era, very small teams working with very powerful technology can do insane things. Again, I'm at AMD now, and AMD and NVIDIA are, obviously competitors in the space. But I remember when NVIDIA first hit $1 trillion, and this was a few years ago. It went from $1 trillion to 4, in like 2 years. But when it hit $1 trillion, everyone's like, "How is it possible? How could NVIDIA have only 30,000 employees, but be worth $1 trillion?" What's more interesting to know is, do you know how many employees they had to add to go from 1 to 4 trillion? Does anybody know? 6,000. That's it. 6,000 employees. So when they hit $1 trillion, they had 30,000. Today they have 36. So what you need to know about that, again, small countries, small companies, small teams will do insanely amazing things and create huge value, right? Because of AI and the technologies that you can, like the data and so forth. So that means you should not feel burdened or locked into your growth potential because you have 22 employees or because you don't own your building. Or that just doesn't matter anymore. So I'll just leave you with that, though.
Thank you, Keith. Arun.
Wonderful. Everybody can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I flew in from Minnesota. I worked at Best Buy, UHG, so I can say something and just fly off. But this is what I cover. So when Fazy, you asked about who knew agents, I was so surprised that everybody almost raised it, right? So
this is a very special audience, by the way.
So Dean Williamson, you talked about agency, right? So I think agency is going to be very interesting. And what I've been focused on is the post-AI world. Let's assume that AI is going to be just part of us. So I actually take the intelligence part out, and I call them artificials. We will have teams which are consisting of humans and artificials. That's something that each of the leaders have to think about. So talking about Cursor, that's actually one of the many companies I research at Gartner. I led the Magic Quadrant last year. And what's interesting is that if you're ever interested, look at Lean AI Native Leaderboard. Just Google it, and you will notice that there are teams which are tiny, but they're packed with amazing talent. And Dean Williamson, you talked about, that when you have highly talented people, and then you empower them with these AIs, imagine what you can do. So right now, there's a lot of talk about layoffs. I mean, they're happening, okay? But what I would suggest is think about this fork in the road. You have a choice to make, which is you can lay off about 20-30% of your people, and you'll get 20% gains. I mean, that will look great on your P&L. But think about this future here, that where every human in your organization, you are giving them a fleet of AI agents. Fleet. I have my own development team. I develop applications on the side. These are all AIs. These are all agents. I have a designer, I have a coder, I got a security agent, I got an operations and all. See, that's the same thing that you would think about. So there's a fork in the road. You can take the shortcut and lay off your people. Probably they are your best people. You took effort to hire. But the fork in the road is, what if you say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to encourage everybody to use this and lean in so that they can be superhumans, as you talked about. So I think that's the message. So lean in and empower your people with AI, and they will be superhumans.
Thank you, Arun, and thanks, everyone. A little bit about what we do here, the perspective of what Claire, you said. People can use AI to quickly come up with an application, but how do you make it enterprise grade? How do you add all the capabilities about security, about regulatory aspect, about commercialization, metering, monitoring, monetizing, all that stuff that we call the context? You can create the core very quickly. You and I have talked about it. How do you turn it into something that is enterprise grade right away? And that is what Corent steps in. We are the context for the core application anyone creates very quickly with AI, with having your own artificials to build it. and commercialize it and ruggedize it and have it available for the market. Not in today's best teams. Today take about 2 years. And in this audience, those of you who have been before, we have talked about it. We have people on the panel with this technology that we have invented, and of course, it itself is AI powered. This technology of automate is a platform called SaaS Ops, SaaS operating system. It plugs into any core application you can build with or without AI, and boom, that application becomes commercial ready with all the aspects that you wish you had. Spending another 2 years, 3 years trying to reinvent the wheel, it's already there, you plug it in. And so basically when you look at the word SaaS, software as a service, think of us as the as a service in the term software as a service. You focus on your domain expertise, whether it's hospitality, whether it's conference management, whether it's hospital management, whatever it is, you focus on that core expertise, use AI to the max. And all your artificials, I want to keep repeating it, I love that term, it's a great term. And you had it on LinkedIn just last week, I loved it. So with all that capabilities of people and AI agents, build the most intelligent, shiny object in the world and plug it into as a service. And instantly it's available to go to the market. And we're very pleased and proud to be working closely with AWS. In the last 3 or 4 months, we had a record of 60 plus ISVs turn into fully capable SaaS. And tomorrow we're going to make a major announcement, the next generation database that is fully AI backed and blockchain already baked into it, called Data Arc, will be announced tomorrow, that has been SaaS enabled by Corent, saving them about 3 years to get to market. So what we bring to the table is we say, use all the AI power, build the core application, the core, but don't waste time about the context. We plug in the context. Everything that every SaaS solution, every software solution, every AI solution that needs to go to the market, you need to have all these contexts. We have it. Why build it yourself? So one of our goals are to obsolete the term SaaS development or SaaS engineer. You got to be a software engineer, a software developer. Create a core value and plug in. We make the whole SaaS commodity, in a sense that databases are commodities, operating system is commodity. You don't spend time and effort building your own database. You just use an existing one. The same way we say, do not waste your time building your as-a-service capabilities. Plug into SaaS Ops, and it all has all the certifications, the securities capabilities, and commercial aspects, and publication on cloud marketplaces, and everything else, including things you have not even imagined to be in, because we have had time to imagine them. One of the last point I make, the market is now demanding for pay for usage, usage-based billing, UBB, the acronym. And phenomenal SaaS companies such as Salesforce, such as ServiceNow, these are $200, $300 billion SaaS companies, have been promising for the last 7 years that they would offer usage-based billing, and no one has been able to develop it. We have 143 invention patents on metering. If you cannot meter it, the usage, you cannot bill for the usage, especially in a multi-tenant environment. So that's another next practice that's coming around, that you plug in metering to your software as a service, and boom, you have usage-based billing, what the people have started to demand from the big SaaS companies. So with that comment, back to my moderator role here. I should have had 2 different hats here. So Claire, you mentioned the SMBs, and I can use the term Lego blocks and modules. What is your advice to an SMB, or whether you differentiate between the S and M, small and medium size, because the rules could be different? What is your suggestion if somebody's running an SMB business? What is the best thing they can do right away to get on with AI, to maximize their business efficiency in that regard?
So first, I think, I don't want to say that it's a technology answer. The most important thing that they need to do is understand what their business priorities are, where the gaps in achieving those business priorities are, and then, like we say at Amazon, work backwards from that to how are they going to close them. And that answer may be through AI, it may not. I mean, I do think that there is a way for every business, and every business is going to be using AI very, very soon. So certainly if you're not looking at it, you need to be now. But I want to give you an example. I live in Seattle. I came down from Seattle yesterday and had a lovely dinner that Fazy hosted with a lot of very interesting local people. But on the plane, I was sitting next to a woman who works for a local game development company in Seattle. And she and I had a discussion about AI, and she was saying that, I don't know, I'm an artist, and I'm a little bit concerned about the IP, and a lot of this, maybe I'm taking it too personally. Like, she was so sweet and so Seattle, actually, just did how she was like not just coming out there and saying it, right? And then she told me a story about her previous employer. So now she's working for a different game developer. She was working for a previous employer, and the CEO of this company just flat out told her boss, you've got to fire the entire art department and use AI now. Use AI to develop everything. We've got, Mid-Journey. We've got all these tools. You just need to... Hello? Okay, sorry. It's a little sort of fading in and out here. Maybe we need some... Yeah, the agent took a break. So that is not how you want to approach AI, right? Like, honestly, my first thought is, okay, that one's working now. It was, what an idiot of a CEO. He clearly never talked to the dean here. But you don't want to just use AI for the sake of using AI. Like any other technology, you have to work backwards from your customers, what you're trying to do to help your customers and your business priorities. So that said, I mentioned Kiro because I wanted to be sure to give you something practical to leave with, and that is a tool that you can use for prototyping that way. We also have something called Amazon Q, which is essentially, I'm not really allowed to say this either, but a chat type bot for, but to be used in a business context. So wouldn't you just love to be able to upload like all of your emails and business document resources and data and everything else, and then be able to query it like you do certain other things maybe in your personal life, and get answers to your business questions immediately? So that's what Amazon Q is. It's a really, I use it every day myself. We've deployed it internally. It's a great tool. So that's another simple thing I think you can get started with. But again, I don't want to make this about technology. And I do want to say one more thing, sort of tangentially related. Both of you said something profound, I think, but talking about like a 20-person company that's worth $9 billion, right? Or talking about augmenting humans. And it sounded, when I heard it, it sounded to me like, oh wow, you have to hire the very best of the best in order to be able to augment them effectively. And I don't think that that's the case. I think that AI actually can augment anybody, because we all have these ideas locked in our heads, and we have different kinds of capabilities that AI can help us unlock without having to have that kind of technical skill set of whether it's a coding skill set or musical theory, or in my case, economic theory. I've been working on my next act in terms of thinking about how to reinvent capitalism into something that prioritizes reuse and recombination. So, I suddenly sound like a top Adam Smith theorist if you were to ask, but yeah, all I'm saying is I'm not a brilliant person, but I can do brilliant things because of the augmentation that AI is bringing.
My favorite economic quote is in the long run, we're all dead. I think that was John Maynard
They
Keynes.
said you can't get out of this world alive. That's
Yeah, that's true. No,
Yeah.
that's right.
So,
Well,
Keith, how do you recommend to these heads of states, the princes you meet with, the prime ministers, presidents, what is your angle? How do you pitch to them that they should wake up and take the AI seriously for themselves?
Yeah, well, I think in your notes that you emailed us, you asked, how do countries get ahead? How do people?
Yeah, and even enterprises. I mean,
Anybody. And you know, there's really bad answers to these questions. Okay, so I remember multiple meetings with world leaders, talking about this very topic, and they'd say, what do you recommend we spend? How much should we budget? Or questions like that. How big a computer should we build? And I always had the same terrible answer to them, which was, how much can you afford? I said, whatever you can afford, you should spend.
how good do you want to get?
No, I don't even say that. So like the Prime Minister Ana Brnabić of Serbia, small country, small economy, small budget, they only had $3 million to spend. That was it. I said, so spend $3 million. We'll build the biggest computer that you can afford for $3 million, and we'll just create as much value as we can for you. If you're, in the UK, it's 500 million. It's 100 times, 150 times more, right? Much bigger budget, much bigger country. So they'll spend that. Saudi Arabia, 80 billion, right? I mean, there's just almost no limit, right? So every country is going to be in a different place. Every company is going to be a different place. So nearly impossible to kind of use some arbitrary benchmark of how much should we spend. It just doesn't matter. What matters is that you lean in. What matters is you take it seriously, and you go to war with the army that you have. You obviously, if you want to attract greater talent, then you can talk to Zuckerberg about his $100 million pay package strategy. That might work for some of you. But the truth is, you really you cannot get ahead of this. It's impossible to get ahead of this. So every single week, or every 2 weeks, I should say, every 2 weeks, there's a new trophy handed out to these models, right? So you hear about Google Gemini will announce, we have the best model. And then 2 weeks later, DeepSeek will say, no, we have a better model. And then OpenAI will announce, drop their one. On Monday, their model went to number one. No, we have the best model. So being the best, okay, is about a 2-week cycle now, okay? So to give you some perspective of some related examples, so when I got into the semiconductor industry in 2019, the cycles were every 2 years. So you would roll out a new chip every 2 years. That was very expected, is understood. The whole industry kind of mapped to that every 2-year cycle, right? Now it's every year. So now, 2 years ago, it became every year. So every 12 months, everyone has to roll out a brand new chip. So that's twice as fast, right? And the world's fastest computer is measured every 6 months. So every 6 months, a new machine moves to the top. And so every 2 years to 1 year, every 6 months, every 2 weeks, you can see the pattern, right? Impossible to stay ahead of this. So all you have to do is lean in, do the best that you can, but you should know that the handcuffs are off, right? The potential to create value, whatever the calculus for competition is, it's been rewritten, right? Some of my favorite work are with small countries. Malta, Estonia, Vietnam, small countries, small economies or Singapore, doing amazing things. They have limits in terms of space. They have limits in terms of transportation. Their populations are small, but they're so motivated and they're so strategic and they're focused. Their GDP is going to go like that. And so you're going to see the entire balance of power. You're going to see the distribution of wealth really be redistributed in our lifetimes. The biggest countries in the world, Japan, India, China, US, they'll still be the biggest countries in the world. But on the next 30 countries, you will see countries moving up, and you'll see changes based on who's leaning in to AI and whose economy is not. That's what's going to happen. And I think that same thing is true within industries. Whether it's life sciences or it's retail or it's insurance or it's construction, doesn't matter. You're going to see, and you mentioned artificials, but you left something out. Artificials, which is a great way to think about it. It's not just digital intelligence, it's physical intelligence too, right? So we're entering the age of digital labor, we'll call it, right? And you will, if you're a CEO in this room, you'll be the last generation of CEOs that only have humans working for you, okay? And you will have a combination or some thereof of virtual digital agents, like we talked about, and humanoid robots. Those will be here. Well, they're here. I mean, they just had the world's first half marathon with 26 robots running 12 miles in China just 2 months ago. Okay, so this is absolutely right. You're just not fully aware of it. So just give it maybe 2 more years, and you will see them in the parking lot. You'll see them at the mall. You'll see them at the airport. You'll see them in warehouses. Humanoid robotics and digital agents are going to be pervasive in our lives in different jobs. So your artificials will be both physical and digital. And obviously, it'll depend on what your business you're in.
Thank you, Keith. Arun, following Keith's artificials, you started a whole different topic here. At this time, when I talk to CEOs, and you talk to a lot of CEOs because you advise them around the world, so the conversation almost always focused on AI tools. Which tool set should I use? Which tool am I missing? Like in the next 2 weeks, who got ahead of the other one? Seldom they talk about AI teams. So what is your advice to the CEOs or the C-level, C-suite moving from AI tools to AI teams? In other words, to artificials in a balanced way to maximize productivity. We were talking about productivity and effectiveness as opposed to simply focusing on efficiency.
Yeah. So agents are still assistants. So we think that agents are something which will wake up and do stuff. No, we like agency. There's a human who is going to be directing. So they will have those teams. So for example, so at least, I just wanted to say, you had asked earlier too, like how would you start? Yes. Because there's a whole power law. Some people are way ahead, some people are starting. It's like a running train. You're never late, but you just have to lean in. The first thing is personal productivity, right? Personal productivity. Second, team productivity. What can you do? That's internal, so you're automating workflows, for example. And then the third one is basically customer facing or people facing. The last one, I don't see we doing that as much at this moment. We are really focused on the internal, that's fine. Yeah. To do that. The agents are actually now becoming very good. There is a Chinese company which called Manos AI, and they're general purpose. You can give it all kinds of things. It will go back and do research, code and everything, and come back with an answer, which is very interesting. But in ChatGPT, there's an agent mode you can do, and then there are other agents coming in, like Perplexity is another thing where you have a browser, which is AI browser. So these are all agents that can do stuff for you. That's the next level to really think about. Imagine we have to upskill and reskill. These are still very, very different. These are not tools. Tools have a single purpose, but as you mentioned, is that it's a general purpose technology. General purpose technologies are very powerful. That means it's like electricity or computing or cloud computing, etc. They change almost everything at some point, and at some point they also replace. So that's where I would focus on. There's a lot of interest in agents, but from our research at Gartner, only about 7% are actually in production. Okay, there's a lot of hype, but the promise is very, very good.
Thank you, Arun. Very insightful to start with different layers of productivity. You guys have any questions for me?
So I have a question. We have had a conversation before, and I think we talked about everybody can build something today. Even just with AI, you can just say, hey, to-do list, it will maintain that, right? So we're building applications, which are very personal. You don't need a development team. You can actually develop an entire application, etc. But one of the challenges has been, we talked about, is I got a brilliant ideas I can cook up things in, but putting it in production, protecting it from everywhere else. So maybe you could clarify, what does SaaSify mean? Meaning, when you develop an application, let's say, and you're putting in production, what are the different aspects? You touched upon metering, for example. That takes a lot of effort, and it sucks the energy and enthusiasm once you've solved the problem,
And in 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Yes. Well, thank you for the question. So that's a lot of people believe that when you build some software on the cloud, it's automatically SaaS. And I got that question I had to explain it again and again and again that being on the cloud has practically nothing to do with SaaS, that during the pandemic I wrote a book about it. And Dean Williamson's testimonials is in the book. It's what differentiates SaaS from software. The differentiation is 2 to 3 years of R&D to transform a software into easily distributable, deployable, efficient. What's the difference between Salesforce.com and Sugar CRM that went bankrupt? Both of them delivered the same thing to the customer. Both of them delivered something as a service to the customer. One, Salesforce was highly efficient and effective. Sugar presented the same value to the end user. The back end wasn't efficient, and it was costed them a lot, to a degree that with every new customer they were losing some money, and they said, don't worry, we make it up in volume. No, you can't if you're losing money. So when you SaaS enable a solution, you make it like Salesforce, only a lot better, by plugging in the brand new technology that takes care of everything that you have to reinvent the wheel for every single software application, the back end, to make it more efficient. It just came to me, this is not AI generated, I came up with this idea. I asked this question from people in conversations: how many companies do you think are in Global 2000? And a lot of people pause and they say, wow, I kind of knew that. I said, no, there are 2,000. And on average, Global 2000, how many applications they have? 1,000. 2 million software applications that are proven, that are working well, but they're not SaaS. They're not AI enabled. Through SaaS Ops, within 2 weeks, they become SaaS and AI enabled at the same time, with a lot of the team, the AI team and artificials that you mentioned. Well, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for listening.